this tutorial series on Xcode, we're going to cover both Swift and Objective-C in this series. And so the first thing we'll do is start Xcode. I'm using Xcode 7.3 and we'll start a new project. So this is just to give you an intro to constraints in Storyboards. So to get started, we'll just create a project called part 1 and we'll select Objective-C as our language. Use the default location. Select the storyboard. So in this tutorial, we are going to create a simple example where we concatenate the contents of two text fields. So here I drag this text field across. I open the view controller. The view controller has been assigned over here, and so I can first set the constraints on this text field by selecting the align tool, say align horizontally, and select the pin tool and select pin to the top and restrict the height and width. And now I can drag the second text field across. Again, select horizontally in container to constrain it and select the leading space and the height and width. Then I can select a button and I can do the same thing with the button. So just horizontally constrain it and restrict the height and width. And also I can use a label and set it down here, center it horizontally and set the height and width. Now notice that this constraint here is the spacing to the button, and so that represents the spacing with the button, and similarly on the button, if we look at the leading space, that is the spacing to this text field. So now we can control drag from the text field, the first text field, and say first text field, control drag from the second text field. Oh, I did something wrong there. Yeah, so control drag from the second text field and say second text field as the outlet. Control drag from the button. This time we need an action on the button. So set the action to button tapped and set the outlet from the label and call it output label. Now we can just push the button, the text fields up a bit and update the constraints to match the new position. Similarly, push this up, update the constraints, push the button up, update the constraints, push the label up, and update the constraints. Okay, so now we have all four things wired up. So we can set the action on the button. So here I can say, actually let's first test check if the label has the right constraints on it. So on the label there's a leading space to button, there's a height, width, and a line center of X, so horizontally align it. So that's fine. Okay, so now let's set the action. So we'll say that self dot output label dot text equals self dot first text field dot text string by appending string self dot second text field dot text and close it out with a semicolon. So if you want to see what that looks like, okay, so now we can run that. So let's run this on a simulator. So select 5S as the simulator, and it should show up. So if we say hello, and click on the button, the label has the title. So notice that the label is not large enough to contain the entire word, contain the entire word. So we're going to expand the label. So just expand the label horizontally, and then we're going to update the constraints on it. So just click on the resolve tool and update constraints on it. And also we can remove the default word on the label and set a background on it instead, so we know where the label is, right? Okay, so let's run that. So again, we can type hello and world. Tap the button and okay, so notice that it's saying world, which means it didn't get the first text field text. So let's see what was wrong there. So in our controller, we wired up the first text field to the wrong thing. So notice that the first text field is wired up twice to the same thing. So let's fix that. So we're going to say, so this one is wired up down there. So I'm going to kill the wiring on that, and let's do it again. So take the wiring here, select first text field. Yeah, now that's connected correctly. Select the second text field, drag it across. Now that's connected correctly. Now run it. And you'll notice that everything runs fine this time. Okay, so thanks for watching. See you in the next part.